Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Long Play Club. This is the beginning of a new era, a fall of bats and bros. We got some of the crew back together. My name is Christian Buckley. I like Batman a lot. Immediately to my right on the video, Jack Martin. How are you doing?
Howdy. Very, very good. Glad to be here with you both. Talking about a game I think we all love very dearly. A very old game at this point, but very excited to be here.
Absolutely excited to be back. And great energy. You're right. We all love this game. But Omar, why are you so serious, man?
I don't. I'm the Joker.
You're right.
That's all I got.
Well, that was a big thing on your Twitch, right?
What?
That was a big thing with your Twitch, right? You had all those
I
Joker
guess
graphics
so.
for a while.
Yeah, I did. People
Yeah.
like calling me the Joker for a while, and I kind of ran with it. But I never knew if it was a compliment or it meant something more nefarious. But anyways, yeah, we're here. Thank you for having me. I can't believe we're doing a long play. Seems like potentially a series. I don't know, but we're here. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. There are several Batman games, specifically Batman Arkham. There's a few of those. We are here today to begin deep dive discussion on Batman Arkham Asylum. There's going to be 2 episodes of this covering the first half of Batman Arkham Asylum, everything up until Harley Quinn is locked away. And then we will be doing a second episode covering the back half of the game through the ending. And we're recording this at, like, on the cusp of September. Episodes are probably going to be released throughout the month. And stay tuned for the future with what Arkham City will be and whatever else beyond that. So that is, I think, the only housekeeping stuff. So getting back into the groove of the long play, I think best way to start out, the way we did with Metal Gear, is Batman Arkham Asylum, general history. How are you playing this replay? Is it a replay? Is it your first time? Omar, I'll throw it to you. What is your history with Batman Arkham Asylum? What version you playing? How you playing it? Let's hear it.
Sure. I was really excited for this game when it was coming out in a way that I'm not sure if I was a genius or just a dumbass kid that wanted a new Batman game because licensed games at the time weren't always so good. But I remember when it was announced and I was kind of following it while I was like 9 or 10. I went to GameStop when they had that Brawler demo or whatever, and I very excited. I pre-ordered it. I have this over here, but might be my Game Informer where they did the world exclusive reveal of it or whatever. So I don't know if we want to dive into that later. But I have this is a collector's edition. My mom drove me to GameStop in 2009 for.
That's sick.
August. Yeah, it's cool. There's a really crappy battery. It's not crappy, but the battering has like scratches on it, which is a whole debacle. And then have a copy of the game. It was cool. Really excited. How I'm playing it now today. I should say I really enjoyed it when it came out. I think I probably played it like 5 times in a row that year. But I'm playing it today on a Steam Deck. I thought I'd try that with some headphones on a couch. It was pretty comfortable. And it was pretty cool. Ran nice.
Very nice. Jack, I'm curious with your history with Arkham Asylum, right? Because Omar brings up the announcement, and of course, in retrospect, we've talked a lot about how like licensed games we grew up with, like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1 on the PS2. Is that a good game? No. Did we play it and love it? Yeah. With this, do you remember the build-up for it? Like, run us through what it was like for you with your first experience of Arkham Asylum.
No, I didn't play it at launch, and I think I maybe saw a trailer or two, and I was like, I got to the point at that point in my life where I was like, oh, licensed games are what they are right now, so I'm just gonna ignore this. And then it wasn't until the lead up to Arkham City where I realized like this series was actually really good, and I saw like I think the E3 showcase for Arkham City. I was like, whoa, this looks fantastic. Like I need to play Asylum before jumping into this. And actually, my first experience with the game was with the demo, similar to a bunch of other 2009 games like Skate 2 and Mirror's Edge. Like, I just played the demo endlessly forever until finally getting it. And I was looking back on my achievements, and I always thought this was funny. I got the Game of the Year edition in August of 2011 before City came out, that I think November. and it has like a separate achievement list. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, I got this in August, and then eventually went back and did the 100% achievement thing for like the regular version of the game. I think I eventually sold the Game of the Year edition, and then I played it on PS3 and got the platinum on that version, and then I have since gotten the platinum on Return to Arkham, and that's how I'm playing it now.
Nice. Yeah, I'm trying to remember back, right? Because like sorry, I'm getting a phone call. That's gonna show up on the headphones. I'm trying to think back to my first experience with Arkham Asylum, and I don't really remember the pre-release for it, because it came at a time where this was when I stopped being a Nintendo first kid. Because like we grew up with a Nintendo and a PlayStation for like every generation since the 90s. Like when I was born, there was a PS1 and N64 in the house. So we had everything up until the Wii. The Wii is the first like of that generation we got, and I was like, I feel like I want to get something like a next gen console, and one of the driving forces was Arkham Asylum. I was like, oh, I love Batman, and this looks like an amazing Batman game, and like it looks better than any Spider-Man game I've ever played. This looks so cool. I have to play this. So I got a 360 as my first next gen console. This was my first next gen game. And I had the 360 for as long as it took me to beat the game. And then I was like, well, now I want to play Uncharted. So like I sold the 360 and then swapped it out for PS3, and eventually replayed Arkham Asylum on the PS3 with the Joker stuff. And yeah, I've played it so many times since then. I have the Return to Arkham Platinum, and that's how I'm playing it. I'm playing Return to Arkham, the PS4 version, on my PS5. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this because the Arkham series was very influential for the types of games I like. It got me really believing in licensed games, as we brought up already, and I always love replaying it. So how the discussion's going to shake down, basically, we're going to open the floodgates. Spoilers are, of course, on the table with this. No future spoilers. So for the sake of people who are following along, we're not going to talk about, oh, this little tease of this thing that happens as a reveal late in the game or in the sequel. We'll deal with everything as we're dealt it. In terms of the play experience, first half of the game, I want to start with the introduction because I want to make a claim. I think this is maybe the best video game introduction ever. I think it's really, 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 really goddamn good.
And you're saying like right from the get-go, like Batman taking the Joker down through the long, yeah, it's pretty awesome. And that's one of the things I really like about this game is that it just kind of exists in a Batman lore, and you kind of just are thrown into it and kind of expect that everything that you've probably heard has happened in like Batman comics or movies or whatever has probably happened in this universe, and like you just are let go from there. And yeah, it is a really strong intro.
Like, just the hearing Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill in the car together, they're the first dialogue you hear. Well, actually, I don't think you hear Conroy until he meets the guards, but hearing Mark Hamill's Joker and he's just like cackling in the backseat, it's like, oh, he got him again. That's the vibe they're going with. And they open with like the streets of Gotham City, very not Burton-esque, right? Because like the Burton movies have like that really exaggerated vibe to them with their art, but definitely leaning more into the gothic comic stuff than other Batman things at the time, which was the Nolan trilogy. That was the big Batman thing in the late 2000s. So yeah, like it really sets its identity compared to what is going on with Batman at the time. And then just walking through with like the credits going through and like seeing everybody and Joker just monologuing the whole way, seeing Killer Croc. I love that intro so much.
It's like it's crazy because it's like it was their second game, right? It's like they had like a Hideo Kojima moment or something, and they just started putting their credits all over it, and like just this confident cinematic sequence that just like it's just so good. I don't really know how they did it.
Yeah, and something I never noticed, and I did notice on this replay, is that when you're walking through, because it's like 10 minutes, right? Like you're just walking, you can't go past it, you just have to follow along. And normally I'd hate that, but like setting the game starting there, it's like you're still easing into it. Like Batman, it's like, all right, everything, I'm just like seeing how this is going, and then it all breaks to hell at the end. But every single character that has dialogue there are characters that pop up throughout your playthrough, and I never realized that of like even like Steve Bloom, Doctor Nameless guy. Uh, when you save the doctors by the elevator, he's one of them, but specifically like Cash, Doctor Young, um, the drunk guy, I forget his name, Bowles.
Mm-hmm.
They're all there, and like they're the ones that Joker's like
Frankie.
antagonizing. Yeah, Frankie. So
Yeah, and what I like about this too is like you're delving further into like unsafe territory in a way.
mm-hmm.
So like when you go back and play it, you kind of get that feeling even more, and I like that in the replay where it's like, oh no, we're sort of delving into like places that aren't safe. Like we're getting further and further from safety as we go.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's cool.
To me, it feels very much like a, all right, you got a Disneyland and now you're in the line. Like it's cool, like in a good way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I love that line for the Haunted Mansion one's cool. Just like waiting in that waiting
Yeah,
room.
well,
Love
that that's like the one.
Yeah, and that's
like,
kind of
you
what
know.
this is, right? Like you're just
Yeah.
walking through. It's like I got to make sure Joker doesn't break out, and then Killer Croc shows up, and he's. I love that line. He's like, "I got your scent, Batman." Like I think about that all the
Yeah.
time. It's so good.
A lot of lines in this game are very iconic, or like they have just been ingrained in my brain. I guess because I played it when I was 9.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of one-liners that I just can't stop thinking about.
Yeah, and that's a great thing about this take is, especially this coming out after The Dark Knight, which is like very serious. I think this is more akin to, I'd say like 80% of the Batman takes that have existed, which are somewhat serious, but inject a lot of goofiness into the material. And this is serious for the most part, but there's just so many instances of like whether it's like the henchmen saying like really funny things and also there being henchmen, I think is hilarious. And yeah, just some of the villains that have like the one-liners like what we were talking about. And Joker being kind of like the narrator in a sense, hearing him like as you go throughout the island. Of course, he's obviously going to be pretty goofy, so I appreciate that they went for this take rather than like a very self-serious take that we've kind of been getting a lot in movies, which is great. But you know, this is a nice difference.
We're
Yeah.
already shitting on The Dark Knight. Is that are we 10 minutes into this?
No, I
fucking
love The Dark
podcast
Knight.
And we're going. We're shitting on Nolan already.
No, I love the Dark Knight.
All right.
Yeah. No, I like the Nolan movies. I wasn't bringing it up before as like a slight. I'm just saying. Stark difference.
Well, it is fucking crazy though that this came out this very like this is 2009, right? And Dark Knight was like 2008. Oh, that
Yes.
same era. Because like I feel like we always talk about like, oh yeah, it feels like in a way that the Batman conversation was dominated by the Nolan stuff at the time. But we had this stuff going at the very same time, and that just got bigger and bigger. Like by the time Arkham City came out, I feel like the Arkham name was quite strong, if not as strong as the movies.
Yeah, and I feel like the Nolan trilogy really, I think for a lot of people, myself included, like really was a big resurgence in like the fandom of Batman. And I feel like this game and this game in particular and then Arkham City really like made me very interested in the character and the lore. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of this game is like all the character bios you can find. And just
Yeah.
like doing the Riddler stuff and seeing like weird characters like Great Shark or characters that don't even like come up in the game and just reading about their backstory and be like, when was this dude introduced? And they tell you like when he was introduced in the comics and like give it like a brief background of these weird characters. And I just thought it was so cool and made me really interested in like the Batman lore.
So, I guess since we're still early, I want to ask you guys this as well. Jack, you're bringing up like your motivation with this series getting you really into Batman. Going into Arkham Asylum, because we all played this one first with the Arkham games, right? Okay. Going into Arkham Asylum, what was your, I guess, expectation or like investment with Batman up to that point? Because like I feel like for me at least growing up, like I I was always watching Batman thing, whether it was um, the Clooney one, Batman and Robin. I had that VHS. I still have it. I used to like watch that almost every day as a kid.
Great
Like
movie.
it honestly, I haven't watched it in like a decade, but I liked it a lot. Great one-liners in there.
It's a very interesting Batman document. I'll say that.
Sure. Um, and like before that,
Better than
like
Batman.
what was that?
No, sorry. You can go ahead.
I was,
Please.
I was gonna say and, like
Please.
Adam West as well. So like I was familiar with like the older stuff and like Golden Age sort of Batman things through the adaptations, and then probably however many cartoons there were, and of course the Nolan stuff. So uh, before this though, I didn't watch any of the animated series like at all because I think that was premiering when we were all in diapers, right?
Yeah, it was like 90s.
Maybe you, but
Okay.
I was
Weren't we born
probably
the same
trained from the
year,
get-go.
sir?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I think you're a few months older than me, actually.
Okay. But yeah, like aside from because I know people like reviewers of the time really loved it because they had the returning of like their Batman and Joker, but yeah, this was like my first experience with Conroy and Hamill, and um, it's kind of like the definitive one for me. Like when I think of like a Batman adaptation, it's like, oh well, how close is it to Arkham? How much am I gonna like it? You know?
Yeah. And I also feel like it seems like Arkham and the animated series are, to me, they're kind of just one and the same in terms of like how they approach the character and the universe. Like they're both written by Paul Dini, at least the first two Arkham games, and Paul Dini's from the animated series and like all the spin-offs and or whatever. And just having like that voice cast, and like I think there are some ancillary characters that also return, but mostly Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill coming back goes a long way. And I had a lot of experience with the, like I would just watch Mask of the Phantasm over and over again, and I don't know if you guys remember like the VHS tapes of like that would just contain like 5 or so
Yeah.
episodes of the original series. I had those as well, and so that was a good selling point for me, being like, oh, I remember these names from my childhood, and not realizing Mark Hamill was Luke Skywalker and all that, and do the
What?
Joker as well. So I thought that was really cool, and definitely was very much appreciated when I first jumped into this.
Mm-hmm. Omar, what about you?
I watched Batman Begins on an airplane when I was like 6 or some age, and it was a really bad airplane movie. Didn't really think much of it because I don't know, it was like a really crappy TV.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
dude,
like,
the sound mixing on those Nolan movies, quiet
oh
dialogue.
yeah. Well, at the time they were okay because like he actually cared about dialogue. It was that the Prestige was the last one probably where the dialogue, sound mix was all right.
All right.
But then yeah, like then I saw the Dark Knight in the theater, but I didn't even see it at the IMAX. That's how much I didn't care at the time. I was like, yeah, I'll see the Dark Knight. I saw it at Regal, even though our IMAX and Natick would have played it on film. Like I was a real idiot, and I liked it, but I never really got the fever for it. I don't know if you know, I never got the fever for that movie until like years later, rewatching the Blu-ray. I think most of my appreciation for like the Batman idea kind of came from like this game, to be honest. And then I got really into the Nolan stuff a couple years later when I got really Inception pilled. But yeah, this is I guess my starting point probably. I did watch some Batman Beyond back in the day. And,
Oh, sure, yeah.
I would watch the Joker movie. I don't know if any of the Taz cast came over to that or not.
So now that we're saying through this, I lied. I did have experience with Conroy because I did watch the Batman Beyond Return of the Joker movie, and he was in
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
And I think in
That movie was
flashbacks
up.
they had Hamill as well. I think.
Oh, cool.
I think Mark Hamill he played Joker in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
In the
I remember when
Batman
sorry.
No, that was it.
Okay, yeah, I remember when the press was freaking out about like the cast announcements and stuff. They were like, "Yeah, we got Tara Strong in this game." I'm like, "Oh, cool!" From the Powerpuff Girls, because like she's like Bubbles or Blossom or something. I don't know, but that's all I had.
Yeah, and I also I think also he did Conroy did the voice for the Justice League series as well, which like watched a lot of that. But yeah, mostly returning cast members for this video game. incredibly strong performances, right? Because again, this is 2009, same year as Uncharted 2, uh, which I think is probably at that point in time, unless I'm forgetting something, unless there's some like real big David Cage fan out there, probably the bar for like cinematic stuff in games was Uncharted 2 in 2009, right? Would you guys argue
Yes,
otherwise?
and this I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and well, Metal Gear Solid 4 was the year
Okay,
before
sure,
this.
fair.
Yeah,
I feel like that's an exception.
GTA 4 was called Oscar contender by IGN the year prior as well. So I don't know.
Okay.
That I played that again recently, and it
Yeah?
is definitely a 2008 game,
No.
Well, Jack,
but I love it.
starting out with the replay of Arkham Asylum, is this definitely a 2009 game, even though we're playing the remastered version?
In some ways, it is. In some ways, it is. I feel like a lot of the one shots of like people talking is not great to look at, even though, like what you said, we're playing on the remastered. Like the lip syncing isn't all that great, and there are some like just really funny moments that are unintentional. But I think for the most part, like it feels good, though I think it is kind of sluggish from like playing modern games. Going back to this feels somewhat sluggish. And maybe this is me just having played through it 1,000 times, but I found it like really easy. That probably is me just being used to the formula at this point and knowing where to go. But like even like the armed guard moments, there are like only like 4 or 5 that you can take out, and it's pretty quick, I feel. But that's probably me just being used to the environments at this point. But there are a few things in this game where I'm like, yeah, this is pretty old.
If I may say, I think the lip syncing wasn't necessarily like dated. I think at the time, like this one was kind of slacking. Like
Yeah.
everyone was like, "Oh, there's something's goofy about this." But yeah,
Yeah, I think also it's on Unreal 3, or like the original one is. And I think playing through it at the time like was very impressed, right? Because again, I was like what 12, and like hearing people like say like, "Oh, Unreal 3 all looks the same" on like the internet. And it definitely does, but I think this is like an instance of using the constraints of that to like do something really cool, because at least in the original version, like the PS3 360 Steam version of this game, I still think it looks amazing. And
yeah, I think it looks incredible.
like all the character models look so unique. They have their own style, the lighting, like the wrinkles on the cowl in the original version, and just like the shadows it has, so cool. I'm longing for that playing the Return to Arkham, because it's way easier to access, but I feel like as a project, it's like it doesn't hit the same, I guess. I don't know. Like you can see side by sides. There's absolutely like a downgrade that happened despite being playable on modern hardware. But visually, I do love the character designs, like you were saying, Jack, and like the fact that there is this like, I don't know who did the art for this, but like the illustrated character models in the character bios, all those are amazing.
Yeah.
Like all the art in this game is great. I just think it's the replication of it in the Return to Arkham thing is where there's problems for me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh no.
I was gonna say on the character model stuff. I always thought like they always kind of looked a bit bulky and kind of messed up back then too. Like no future spoilers, but the first few seconds of like City when you, I always thought that was like the best case of like, all right, these guys have kind of everyone has a bulk to themselves. I feel like in this game that doesn't look. It looks like very much like the lizard people from Gears of War. I think.
Sure.
But I think the world and like art direction and Batman himself like the suit looks good, but and some of the characters they still crock, but the world itself I think looks pretty spectacular. There's some shots, looking over the gardens and stuff and your wounds.
Yeah.
It still holds up pretty flawlessly today.
I think the atmosphere is still intact very well.
Yeah.
Like coming out of the gates, like to getting to the island itself and like exploring that area at first and going throughout, like having this like uneasy tone throughout the game, that's still there. Still protected even after like 10 plus years. So
Yeah, definitely.
The guards look messed up. They're particularly the worst case of character bulk, I feel like.
And you see a lot of them too
Yeah.
when you finish off the last guard and you get like the close up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this
Thank you,
happens with
Batman.
you, but yeah.
Yeah.
And you always like finish them off and they like end up like inside a railing or like fall over like over the edge or whatever, and it's just like the funniest thing to have zoomed in on.
Yeah. There are some great ragdolls in this game. I think
Mhm.
this and like Skate 2 or wherever sick.
Yeah, I definitely love that about it. Like there is a jank in place still, but I think like maybe it's just the fact that it's all taking place inside this like wet, dank asylum that's like falling apart. Um, like maybe that masks some of the ugliness of how it's aged, but I do think like the and when I say ugliness, I mean more of like the engine, like the look that Unreal has before Arkham Knight. Um, but yeah, visually, I love the walkthrough, of course, and then also like we were saying when you first step out to like the cliff on top and you get a good look at like was it Arkham North, that part of the island, and you get to see the huge ass moon in the background, which is just the coolest thing ever.
I love that choice.
Yeah, it's I was
Totally unnecessary, but they stuck it, and I'm glad.
yeah, it makes zero sense and we'd all be dead, but like goddamn what a choice. They made the right call. Whoever's idea that was, bravo.
It really looks like you were colliding with the moon. Like if you look at it long enough, it's like, oh, this thing's going to destroy us.
Maybe Batman's just tripping, but he doesn't know it.
Yeah, I mean
That's true. He does throughout the game several times.
that does happen a lot in this game.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, or go ahead.
All right. I don't think every Unreal Engine 3 game looked. There's some real good Unreal Engine 3 looking games, and then obviously there's a lot of other crap. But I think this one and like Gears of War series, they look like good. They look unique in their own stuff. But like, I guess there was a lot of other games that came out afterwards. But I always felt like if we could point out examples of, oh, here's a developer using an Unreal Engine 3 and making it look like their own stuff. It's probably this and Gears. I don't know what else was at the time, but
Yeah,
Brazil was kind of everywhere.
there's another
I think that
one.
engine gets flack sometimes. Not an Unreal Engine 3 Defender per se, but like I think was Prince of Persia 2008 on the engine too? Like
I don't know.
maybe not. They could do stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Rocket League was on the engine.
okay, yeah, that's fair. I
Yeah.
do think Asylum and City and Night, all three are great looking games, and my flack is more so with the remaster more than anything else. Like I think the original intent they had and like the original stuff they were able to do with Unreal 3 is still really impressive. Like
Yeah.
Omar, like you sent me some screenshots of it on the Steam Deck, right? And I was like, damn, that looks really good. And even back in the day on the PS3, the worst performing console at the time, I was like, yeah, this
Right.
still looks rad. Like,
I wanted to mention that when you guys were both talking about playing the 360 copies, I bought that PS3 copy day one, and like I think a very early form of Digital Foundry was around, and they were like comparing screenshots, being like, yeah, the PS3 version doesn't have VSync, and it's like 600p. I was like, oh, but who cares? I was 10.
Yeah. so, after the game like kicks off its intro, I'm curious how you guys feel about the pacing because the premise of this is it all takes place in one night. It is Batman probably at like midnight brings Joker in. By the end of the day, by the dawn, he's like, all right, I'm going home. So I think the fact that it's very linear, it's straight up, it is a Metroidvania, which was like, I guess in retrospect, my first one of those. It has a very deliberate momentum to it, and I'm curious how revisiting it you guys feel about that, because this is the only linear Arkham game out of the bunch. So I guess, Jack, playing through, like, Joker breaks out, hell breaks loose, we get to the tutorial with Zaz and the guards with the guns and all that stuff, and then you end the tutorial block, I'll call it, with the Titan fight. From there, you're sort of left to your own devices, of those being, like, Batman's gadgets, detective mode, and all that stuff. So the way the game flows, the way they throw different villains out at you, do you feel like it still feels as urgent as the premise sets up?
Yeah, I think the tutorial works to set that up, but also just show you um, like how to play the game. Although I found difficulty really like separating how I feel about a lot of points in this game, especially the intro, um, because I've played it so many times. And like I don't know about you guys, but I just like turned my brain off for this and just I know exactly where to go now. Like I don't. There was no point where I was like, like did I miss something here? Like not really sure quite where to go. I feel like we've all probably just played it so many times that I just can zip through everything really quick. But holistically, I think the intro is really good at just like showing you the ropes. I also really like what we were talking about with the intro, that ending with the Joker escaping and then that tying you into like how to get used to like the combat formula as well as like the Predator stuff. I think it does a good job of that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a downer when we were talking about how good the intro is in the opening. We were talking about it, but yeah, it definitely like after seeing it like, or honestly, most of the times I try replaying this game like maybe like once every couple of years, I like get a few minutes into the intro and I'm like I don't know if I can do this right now, but great intro, but I've seen it so many times. But after that, or I mean, still considering that, I think I just need the breaks every time. Like I played this game on my sofa yesterday, basically from like for like 5 hours straight. I took a little. My dad wanted to talk to me. I had to talk to him for a bit, but otherwise, I was just playing this game like just like nothing. I don't really. Last time I binged a game like that was Elden Ring back in February. Like it was just, it's a very easy game to just play a lot of, and even like kind of like a even I think I have forgot a lot about like where to go and stuff like that. I Texas Christian like a whole part where I forgot how to grapple somewhere, but the it's very handholdy. You know, every time you die in that game, the I don't know if this is I'm playing on easy because I'm a bad gamer, but playing easy and like whenever you die in that game, like the hint. The characters walk in front of you with a little like I got you, and then there's a little hint telling you exactly what to do. Do you guys get that or no? You do.
Yeah, not
Okay.
to not to show you up right now. I've died like once in my playthrough so
No, it's
far.
cool. I made some mistakes. Sometimes the scarecrow guy like was too fast on me, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
And then it's the
That's the
most
one.
infuriating. Yeah, it's the most infuriating thing because it makes you feel like a fucking idiot. Where he's like, don't get into the scarecrow's glance. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Well, that's like the one instance of like changing the perspective of how you control Batman. So it's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, I'm having difficulty controlling him,
right.
and this part itself can be difficult.
yeah,
But even like I don't want to up too hard, but say there's a part with like electric floors and like, all right, before I figured it out or where to go to I thought maybe I had to do some other stuff. But yeah, instantly I died on the floor, and then it was like told me exactly what to do. Basically, I'm like, I think it was just this era. This is where like the handholdy stuff kind of really started.
well,
But
yeah,
like,
because you say that, right? And this is also it's a linear game that we've
yeah,
talked about already. Like there, it's a linear game, but it's kind of like with like a Zelda, where like yeah, it's linear, but like you can still go somewhere else and kind of forget where you were supposed to go.
yeah,
Um,
I think it is as open as at least City was, right? Or I mean, obviously City's bigger, but like it still that game gets zoned off in a way that this one kind of does too sometimes. No, okay. You can't access everything in City immediately. I feel like, and you can't do that here either. But once you get the garden kind of open, it's like
I'm
kind
not
of walking around.
entirely sure.
Okay,
It's hard like without future spoiling it. It's
sure.
hard to say like any of these games are open world, even like
Yeah,
later on. Like
I
they get more open, but like there's nothing to do. It's mostly just like Riddler stuff. I feel like in terms of
Sure.
like it's not living and breathing. It's mostly just like exploration to get like Easter eggs and stuff.
Sure,
But
but
I feel like that's expanded upon with each game. But the core is a mostly linear game with like occasional things to go do.
yeah. And going back to Omar, what you were saying about this game being handholdy, I definitely feel that for sure. But I think the place I was going with, like, it's a linear game, with in terms of like your goals and your very clear about what you're supposed to do next. And I think this is also um, Assassin's Creed might have done it before this, but like detective mode, Witcher Vision, but that started here. didn't it?
Yeah,
I think so.
this definitely popularized it.
Yeah, because I know
Did AC2 do? Did AC2 do Eagle Eye?
AC2 had the Eagle Eye where it turned everything black, NPCs were blue, and then your target was gold.
Okay, that was was that January 2009 or like January 2010?
AC2 is 2009,
Okay.
but I'm struggling to remember if the original Assassin's Creed had that. But if not, like
You might have.
I even like Assassin's Creed 2, because I did replay that like a couple years ago. The Eagle Vision in that isn't really like, oh, click here to look for a yellow path to follow to your target, or like a waypoint system. Like the thing it does there is like sorting through a crowd. Like there's so many people, it's like, okay, this is the one you got to kill. Here, the detective mode, it's full blown. It does do the cool CSI camera thing, but it just lays out a path for you when you're watching your screen in a filter. It's like, okay, that's my waypoint system, which like, sorry, I thought was super cool the first time I played it, just because I remember like scanning Bull's like flask, and it's like, oh, the alcohol particles are in the air, and it's just like the makeup of it is so cool.
And he like cycles through like tobacco scanner, like
Yeah.
alcohol scanner. Like every time he's like, no, I gotta get this one. I
Yeah,
think that's cool.
like the presentations of it's super cool. What it did for the games industry as a whole, hey, that's not the trial we're talking about right now. But I do think it is still a cool thing. I still like detective mode.
Yeah. No,
I can never figure out if I like how it looks with it on or with it off more, because sometimes it looks cool. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very cool having it on, and I try to have it off though as much as I can because, like, the game looks radically different. Like you're
Yeah.
missing like all the, like. I feel like people have said this before, but sometimes I feel bad for like the design artists
Sure.
who like made all these beautiful or interiors or exteriors, and everyone has like this monochromatic filter on like the whole time, being like, where are those Riddler trophies? So I try to turn it off as much as I can, but sometimes I like using it.
Yeah, and I do like it in this game too, right? Because I feel like it's not super intrusive. Like you could, I don't know if I've ever tried doing this, and I mean like for us it's probably like a moot point because like we know where to go, but for the most part, I wonder if you could track some of those things like the Gordon's tobacco or stuff like without detective vision, because like there's handprints that you can see, but I don't know if that's just like at the start of like a signifier of like, hey, this is where you need to scan to start the tracking or what. But like, yeah, popping it on to see like, oh, breakable walls, which are still also very easily telegraphed. I feel like detective mode isn't the worst thing in the world in this game, and it is cool because it does give you that advantage that you would have, I guess, as Batman, where uh, helping you plan out a room in Predator mode, all that stuff. Like, I think it's neat. I think it's cool. I think it gets a bad rap sometimes. But
Yeah, it's definitely cool. I remember like I feel like I read reviews back then that were saying like, oh, you can totally play this the whole thing in Defective Vision, and it's like that was like a slight against it. But I feel like if that's the slight against the game, like it speaks to the quality of the game itself. Like, it's not really. It's you can turn it off. You don't have to do it. You just gotta remember. I don't know what people want. Like maybe just a more intrusive like Batman telling you I shouldn't be using this right now or something. I don't know.
plus, you get to see the skeletons of all the people, right?
That's cool.
Yeah, especially the red ones when they got guns.
Yeah.
That looks cool.
Yeah, red skeleton with a gun. That's pure 2009.
Yeah.
But how do you guys feel about combat? We haven't really talked about it like specifically, but the game is divided into the like arena style combat thing where you're fighting like maybe 15 people at a time, at most, probably somewhere around 6 realistically. And I've been kind of surprised at like how small the groups have been so far. I guess like they just get really ridiculous later on. And I always love the Predator mode stuff, and like that's my preferred sort of like non-walking, non-puzzle solving gameplay style in this game. But the free flow combat stuff is still great, I think. But how do you guys feel about it?
Yeah, it's I'd say from today's standards and like comparing other Arkham games, it's obviously a lot more simple and like this is the first stab at it. But this like did create that base, and it does still feel pretty good for the most part. I really enjoy like the hand to hand combat, despite it being pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the upgrades, and I like how the upgrades for like combat as well as like predator mode stuff with like inverted takedown and stuff that doesn't feel overwhelming like other like skill tree like games where there's like 1,000 different perks and you don't know what specifically is useful. There's only like a handful full of like combat and predator related perks in this, so it's easy to like manage.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think the feel of combat for the most part is pretty good, like being able to vault over stuff. Any combo related combat system is really fun in my opinion, and it's sad to me that Gotham Knights is getting rid of it. So I like going back to this and being able to see those numbers and them also meaning things like if you get to a certain amount, you can do like a special takedown or whatever. So I thought that was always cool.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question about like the combat in this game. Sometimes I find myself you know, you get one guy stunned down there, you get maybe two of them are stunned, then do you press the R2 and the Y or triangle and do a silent the finishing move on them immediately? Or no, do you not do that? Do you just wait for them to get back up and then hit them again? Because I always feel like doing that, the R2Y thing, feels like it breaks the flow in a lot of cases. But I do it.
I think that's the most outdated thing about the combat is you can't like counter when you're like locked into that like ground pound when you do it and you can't counter anyone. So I typically always avoid that unless like someone's across the room.
So you just let them get back up?
Yeah. I wish they had changed that with the remaster where you can just like counter when you're locked into that. But like they can hit you and you can like get knocked out of that. So I typically avoid that.
I'll do it sometimes, or if I knock somebody in the air and I see the stars, I'm like, oh, let me go over to this other guy that's like the only other person here. I'll stun him real quick with the cape and then run back over and take him down. Because I found with the triangle R2 thing, like, if you're even like kind of close, like in game, like maybe within like 10 feet of somebody, he will full on like leap up into the air, do a backwards somersault, and then do the thing. So like they're pretty forgiving with like closing gaps. So I do it sometimes. I don't do it like every single time. But yeah, and again, not. I don't think this is a future spoiler, but like the combat in City, I think is like leagues better than it is in this game. Not only for the sake of like variety from enemies, but just like tweaks. Like this game is unforgiving with the combo stuff of like if you take one step like to the right when you're going towards somebody, it's gone. Like it's pretty rough. As somebody who has platinumed this game, the combo system, those trophies, whoa, this was the worst one to do those trophies on. And like now playing through it casually, not trying to like complete anything, just like living in the world and doing it, it's not as frustrating for me. But you're right, Jack. It is absolutely like really solid foundation. Having played the whole series, it's like I'm missing some things, but it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah. And like if I want to go back and play an Arkham game like for the combat, I'll do like the challenge rooms in City. But like I typically don't go back to this game for that. It's mostly like the vibes and the story for Arkham Asylum for me. So like you get like the sense of like, oh, I see where we're going with the combat stuff. Something I also don't like with the combat is if you finish a combat encounter like successfully or like you lose your combo, you still get the same like noise coming out of it where it sounds like you did something wrong. Like it comes out like this like large weird like annoying sound effect. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I always felt like bad even like if I completed a combat section, I didn't even get hit. It's like the same sound effect.
Is it the bats? I like the bats. I like the video.
No,
bats.
It's almost like if you enter your card incorrectly at like a self checkout.
Oh,
I think I know what you're talking about. Like, is it like the music cue? Because I feel like I've noticed like there's been some times so far in the playthrough where like I've talked to somebody like immediately after a combat thing, and it's like, oh, the music is like jarring. It's like trying to figure out like what audio to prioritize. But yeah, I definitely can like call to mind like some sort of like violin like abruptly stopping, like it like falls off a cliff, sort of. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say for our next playthrough, like try and listen to that
okay,
because I just have noticed it so many times now. I'm like, oh man. And I think they get rid of that because it sounds almost like defeating in a way.
I'll write it
I
down.
never liked that the cape move when you do
Mm.
that on this thing. Is that the bat sound effect you were talking about, Christian? Or it
Oh,
sounds
like
very high
the like
pitched.
it sounds like
The
electricity, like the cape.
It's like
Oh, I love that.
I just feel like maybe I just spam it too much, but my headphones are just going like like it's just too much shit going on. I don't know. Like
No,
it's
the thing that I like that I was talking about, it
sounds like
like
a shredder.
sure, that I think that's what's cool about it. It sounds like you're cutting
Yeah,
electrical
sure.
wires, but like
All right, now I'm sold.
uh, the thing that I'm thinking of is like, I think this happens after you beat a combat encounter. Like the last person you knock out, like 2D animated bats like fly out from them. Is that or is that just when you upgrade?
Oh, that's definitely when you upgrade.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's in that. I feel like that's in future games, but I'll have to.
Okay.
I'll have to. I'm gonna write that down to pay attention to because definitely happens when you upgrade, and I
Mm.
know that happens later on in the series. I'm not sure about right now.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure, but like again, I'm surprised at how infrequent like huge combat encounters are for like full blown free flow stuff. I don't even know if it was called free flow in this game, but like
It might. I think it was.
okay,
I feel like they advertised like come to GameStop and play the free flow demo or
Sure.
something.
so a predator mode though, the last long play
That's
we
the
did,
stealth stuff.
yeah, the last long play we did as a group was Metal Gear Solid. That was a big stealth series. How are we feeling about stealth in this game? Because this was also kind of my first stealth game, I think. It was a lot of my first things as a game, but I I can't think of a game I played before this one where stealth was like a third or half of the game. It was like this was it, I think.
I think it's like kind of brain dead. I don't.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Like it's very easy. I'm not doing much, and I think it looks stupid too sometimes. When Batman is swinging on gargoyles, so he gets shot. I'm spamming R1. And I'm going through like 5 gargoyles in like 10 seconds. It looks like super silly. I'm not a hater, but I don't. I don't even think it counts as stealth. Sometimes it feels like a big QTE moment, I guess. But you know what I will say? It is really cool when you knock one guy down and their clown collar goes off. But before that happens, you put down the super glue or whatever. You put down the disruptor gel, and then when that collar goes off and the guy comes towards him, you just on a gargoyle you detonate it from above. I think that's cool, but that's really my take on it. It's fine.
Yeah, and I feel like that's also one of those things where we've played it so many times that we're just so used to. It's not even like a threat anymore.
Mhm.
Like you just, especially when you get the multi, batarang. We have like 3 batarangs that you can throw at like most of the guys. Like it's usually 4 people, like 4 henchmen that you take out. So you throw 3 at one group, and if you get the upgrade where that effect lasts longer, you can just go take out like 3 at once, and
Mhm.
it's like a 2-minute or less stealth encounter. So it's really easy, and I feel like unlike the combat throughout the game where they do introduce like new elements with people with like tasers or like knives and stuff. There's aside from the shot collar, I'm pretty sure that's like the only added difference, and it doesn't even make that much of a difference.
Yeah, I think not to make excuses for the game, but like I do think, and granted as well, I've gone through all the challenges. You know, I've done all those ridiculously hard predator rooms where it's like you have to do it this way if you want this time for the trophy. So like I feel like I'm still like taking that into every single time I have a stealth room where it's like, okay, plant this, go over there, boom, take that guy out, throw the batarang, he cuts it, distract the other guy, take this guy out, go back there. Like it's very fast. But like you're Batman, you know? It's like shouldn't it be pretty straightforward and easy?
It should be, but like I just wish he looked a little cooler doing it. Though.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like I don't know. I think it's easy and it does look cool. And same is the same exact thing with the combat too. It's pretty easy and it looks cool. And I think at the time, a reason why some of this stuff was, I don't know if it was seen as revolutionary, but seen as one of the best in its class at least, is because like it's all really readable and very like pretty intuitive and like comfortable in a way that like I don't know what were the contemporaries like God of War at the time and Assassin's Creed. And I feel like the brawler combat in this is kind of a leagues ahead of like Assassin's Creed in terms of like right. You played 2 recently.
Yeah. I played
always
Brotherhood
struggle
this
with
year
that.
also. Like Brotherhood was a year later, and like combat in those games is also like spam counter to win, but here it like feels good. At
Yeah,
least.
the animations are fluid and everything like that. And
Yeah, you feel the impact.
and I think like
all those punches.
God of War at the time, like yeah, I think 3 was about to come out, but you know that those games are just about spectacle and big enemies. You don't really, that is a pure button mashing thing. With this one, it was more just like you can kind of see what's going on and all that, and it's good. But I never really thought too much of it. But it was perfect for the game itself.
Yeah, I think with what we've played through so far, also like the combat rooms haven't been, or like the stealth rooms, I mean, haven't really been that interesting design wise. It's a lot of like, there's 4 people that come in through one door, and then they spread out. And like, if you're patient, you can just get to a point where they're all solo, and if you're fast enough, you can just silent take down all of them. But like,
Yeah.
if you don't think it through, and then when they throw the shot caller in, it's like, okay, I took one out, but I wasn't quick enough. Now these 2 are buddied up, and they both have guns, right? So like, I think on the harder difficulties, because I am playing on normal, or at least on hard, I mean, and in the combat challenge rooms, like they do have interesting scenarios built, and I do think the systems there can give you really like engaging planning strategies, like sitting on a gargoyle, choosing which way you want to do this. But so far, campaign wise, there hasn't really been much that's been that interesting, because as far as unlocks go, like the Wayne Tech stuff, I just recently, on my most recent level up, got the remote control batarang, and I remember like the first time that's super useful for those stealth rooms when you're learning everything. But I just kind of dumped it all into health, and like you said, Jack, I have been kind of coasting through combat arenas and stealth arenas. So
That remote control batarang, is that like the Nikita?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't think
pretty
I've got that yet.
There's a achievement for catching that,
Is there?
throwing it to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's pretty fun. There's also a cool thing that I think I knew, but like I think one of the tips pointed it out in like a loading screen. It was like, yeah, it was like every weapon has like a cinematic view. Can you figure out how to trigger it? And I was like, okay, I don't like, what is this exactly? And I think if you're aiming the batarang like standard, and then you hit R1, it tracks the batarang you throw.
Oh yeah.
You can't control it, that one, but like it does like same camera angle. And I haven't figured out how to do this with the explosive gel yet.
I think I know what it is.
Is
for
it
the
the
gel.
slow-mo shot?
I bet it's the slow mo shot just happens with there's a wall with guys coming out of it, like right, or the slow mo shot happens when I think that's not up to you. That is like a game scripted moment. But I think for this, if you do the gel, but you don't move away from the wall, you get that little Batman scene where he's like, I think the camera changes a bit and he like puts his cape and hides away from it. I assume that's probably a cinematic shot, because if you don't do that, it doesn't happen if you are a bit more distant from the wall. I think,
Yeah,
but I
because
don't know.
I fully stand there and take it every single time I plant the thing.
Yeah.
So like I do like the animation where he like covers this fun.
It'd be awesome if like one time he just killed him.
That'd be very funny. But
Have we haven't really, like, are we talking about the story at all a bit, or the intro, or like can I mention some stuff like
Yeah,
obviously
I mean,
some
I
of the art
think-
here is like
I think we've covered like basic systems and everything, right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of all the game is these combat things, the detective mode, puzzles, which we can get to, but like I think if we go back to talking more about the story, like you were saying, Omar,
well, yeah. art-wise, I've mentioned this before, but everything really. This game is so much like BioShock. I really forgot, or I don't think I did not play BioShock by the time I played this. So I think this was my first BioShock kind of thing. But the art and the even the intro kind of feels like the Rapture setup. But also, speaking of the Batarang, this game totally is a Metal Gear Solid light. I forgot, but you get to see all the bosses. You see Foxhound at the beginning, and they all show up later. You get those like crazy sequences. You see a decoy octopus in a cell. I don't know what Batman character that is,
Oh,
but
Clayface.
yeah, you see him. Uh, it feels very. It's just got all these cinematic scripted. There's a lot of talking. I think Joker in this game is basically Otacon. Like, I don't know. I'm just picking up these vibes.
I mean, you're not wrong, right? Because like I think even like with a codec comparison, there are the interview tapes, kind of.
Right.
Where
And
like
it's Phantom Pain light. Wow.
yeah, like all those serve the purpose of are basically the same thing that happens when you call Nastasha, and she's like,
But
"Here's this thing. This is my life story." It's like, okay, cool. That's sort of what's happening with when you listen to like Joker's tape and Clayfaces and Scarecrows. Like you're getting
see,
interviews.
I just
with
don't know
them.
if we can credit that to Metal Gear Solid or BioShock.
That's a
That's
good
my
point.
problem.
I haven't
Like-
played Bioshock, so as far as I'm concerned,
Okay.
it's Metal Gear.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm very impressed that in this and maybe this is added to the remaster. I'm not quite sure, but you can play those tapes and then exit out of the menu and like walk around. Granted, they get
It's
interrupted.
in the original.
Oh,
I'm
was
playing-
it?
Yeah, it's here. I'm doing it.
That is very impressive. That and
Yeah,
they
it is
get
cool.
interrupted like almost immediately because
Yeah.
someone's always talking.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you can do that theoretically is very impressive for a 2009 game.
Yeah, that shocked me when I discovered that because I just assumed it wouldn't go. And
Right.
like the first couple I got, I was like, oh, I want to listen to these. I'll like listen to as many as I feel like I can because we're recording, like we're doing a deep dive. I want to have like as much little fun little details that I can bring up for talking points. And then one of them I picked up, I think at the end of like a scripted thing, like in game, and I was like, oh, actually, let me go back to that. And I went back and it was still playing for a few other seconds. I was like, they did that? Because I don't even think like does Spider-Man even do that? I remember there was like some game recently where like there's like audio pickups that's like
Yep.
that should
God of War
work.
did that, right? Or was it like a Be Quiet Boy? Or like no?
Oh,
well,
yeah.
resume this later, Mimir or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think Spider-Man did that too, or maybe not.
Well, Spider-Man's audio thing was like
Last
they
of Us
had
did it, I think, too, maybe.
maybe. The
But,
only audio thing I remember about Spider-Man was they recorded two sets of lines for Yuri where he's like, if he's just standing, he's talking normally, and then if you're swinging, he's like screaming.
Right.
But like I don't remember anything about audio logs with that game specifically.
You're right. There is something recently that like you had to stay in the menu to listen to, and I'm blanking on it. But you're
Was it
still-
Death
It happens.
Stranding?
Death Stranding.
no, because I
No.
never played it.
There's no audio logs in that, I don't think.
Was it Death Stranding?
No,
No,
you're
you can really
walking
walk
so much
around.
in that game. They gotta
But
let you do
You're
it.
walking around, but obviously, like when you go to base or like at those terminals, you have to listen to a lot of talking.
That's
It's
a good
just standing in place. But I don't know. I feel like it's. I think a lot of games still do this, where it was like they make you sit in the menu.
Yeah,
But
it definitely surprised me, Jack. It's a very good point to bring up. Something I did note though from the character bio menu, since we're talking about those interview tapes, it's very cool because like each character, and the more you play through the game, you can like get more tabs for each one you pick up. And like you said, Jack, some of them are just not even in the game at all. Like Great White Shark. But the Joker one I thought was interesting because when you go into like his background, and they say, what is it? His past. They listed like 3 different story like things of like, oh, what Joker's history, like it's some people say it's this, which
that's just like the Dark Knight.
it is, but also DC Comics somewhat recently did this storyline called 3 Jokers, and it is basically this thing where there are 3 versions of the Joker, and it is the one that is just like the Killing Joke Red Hood style thing. It's like a man who like was trying to do something for his family and it all went wrong. There's one dude who was just a thief, and I forget what the third one is, but each one of those three was covered by like the little blurbs in the character bio of what Joker's origin could be. So I thought that was cool, and that was like a progenitor almost a decade prior of where DC went with their sort of Joker arc that they did a couple years ago. So I thought that was neat. But has there been any other standout factoids or dialogue lines from the character bios or interview tapes that have stood out to you guys?
I haven't been reading them, to be honest. I was crunched for time.
Sure.
But I don't know.
I've also kind of I used to delve into these like anytime they came up. Obviously, this time's a little different because we're playing it for discussion. But I thought it was interesting that Jack Ryder had a like an alias or like a different persona. Like he's a vigilante by night. Like I didn't know that about his character. I thought that was cool. There's like little bits of info that you'll learn from this that I think are really interesting.
For sure. I learned that Riddler's real name isn't actually Edward Nigma. It's like Edward Nash or something like that, and he just like changed it to Nigma so it could be a joke or something like that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never knew that. Is that true? Is that only for Arkham? Because some of the stuff in here is Arkham exclusive, like the Amadeus stuff, and
Yeah.
there's one other
Gotta check the
character,
registry.
Quincy Sharp.
Oh, yeah, and I think Cash might have been from something else. I think one of the doctors is. I like seeing like when everyone was introduced, and a lot of it says like Arkham Asylum Summer 2009.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool. I always like to try to guess too, because it's like, all right, this dude seems like a 50s comic character, and then it ends up being like that. That's always fun.
I mean, that's the thing that surprised me. Wouldn't you think that Quincy Sharp is like some whatever like politician guy from like a Batman comic in the 70s? It's like, no, that Rocksteady created him for this game. He does not exist in anything else. Maybe he's existed in things since then, but
They didn't create that guy, man. He fucking came from Monsters Inc. Isn't he the fucking spider? Is that not just him?
that's a good point.
I feel like
Sure. Yeah, I can see
to
that.
the point. It might even be the same voice actor. I don't even know, but that's all I got.
Yeah. Does Kevin Conroy do the voice for Thomas Wayne?
Yes.
Okay, because I could tell. I was like, I know you're
Yeah. Oh,
trying.
yeah.
I know you're trying, but like, I think that's you. And it's like, yeah, okay.
One thing, and I don't know if we're doing like point by point, but once we're talking about voice acting, one thing I noticed in the like one of the Scarecrow trips, specifically like when you're doing like the going back through like the murder of the Waynes, it's a different Gordon in doing the VO, and that like I always noticed that, but it's the first time I realized like why did they use a different Gordon? Like we had the one throughout like the entire game. And they use like a completely different voice actor, and I'm wondering if they wanted it to be like less cartoony in that moment, because the voice actor who does Gordon is definitely like a gruff like, "Hey Batman, we need your help here," and I don't know if that would like go a long way with the tone of that scene, but I thought that was so interesting. Like they used a completely, and maybe it's because he's younger at that point, but I don't know, it's totally different.
That was my
Maybe
assumption.
because I didn't notice this, but like in Batman's head, maybe the memory of the Gordon that helped him out on that terrible, tragic day where he lost his parents. Maybe it was maybe that's a different Gordon he's kind of put in his mind, because in this game, I think he hates Gordon. There's one line that stood out to me where he said like, "Turns out Gordon's smarter than he looks."
Yeah,
Wasn't that crazy? What was that about?
I couldn't believe he said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a double take. Like, why? Why would you say that?
Well,
He said that to Barbara too, or something. Right? I don't know.
it's interesting though, because like, I think it was maybe in the character bio or something, or like, I don't like. I think it was in Gordon's character bio. It said that like, he's like Gotham and like everybody is like still really unaware of Batman, and like there's like Gordon is like trying, and like at first like he wasn't happy about it. So like, I don't know if this is supposed to be like close to year one. This feels like a Batman who's been at it for a while, but like the way they framed that Gordon relationship in like the bio, and I'll make a note to like revisit it next time and make sure for sure what it says. But like, it did seem like it was like they're only sort of just starting to trust each other, which again is weird because Barbara, Oracle, she's Oracle at this point. she was Batgirl. That happened. She's not anymore. So like, is this just a world where Bruce Wayne Batman kind of doesn't give a damn about Gordon, but like his daughter he's cool with? Like, maybe? Because like I did get that vibe. That is weird, and that line is an element of that.
I straight up lost it.
Yeah.
Do you think I didn't look at any of the bios and stuff, but like, are they written in like Batman's perspective or anything like that, or is it just like, do you know whose voice it is or anything like that?
It's like
Or,
it like breaks. It's like a meta perspective. It's
see.
like
Oh,
Rockstar
it's like
is
a-
writing it pretty much.
I see.
Yeah.
I have some other lines I can bring up too. Maybe I
Sure.
wrote some stuff down, or I don't know. Like, again, I kind of made it in my head like, if I didn't know how this game goes, it almost seems like Gordon is being set out to be the villain or something, or like we've mentioned some of this before the show, but like he's really like just the way he talks to Harley is not right. You almost don't want to save him, you don't want to root for him. He obviously is a cop too, but usually I don't know. I see The Dark Knight. I kind of like Gary Oldman in those movies. He seems like a nice guy. But
Yeah.
in this one, I think Gordon just seems like an asshole.
Yeah. He's very cartoony in this for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I mean, a lot of things in this are exaggerated. Like we talked about the character designs of like Batman looking like he's a brick wall is like Mr. Incredible.
Well, Gordon too, right?
Gordon also,
Yeah.
yep. Joker looks like a string bean. Like he's just like a J, you know, like
Like a joint?
no, like the letter J. He just looks like
Oh.
a J. Like,
I see.
and I don't know. Maybe it's
This,
I think you
go
were
ahead.
gonna bring up what I was gonna bring up. Like,
I probably wasn't.
okay, well, it's like just like a thing that this game has with it, and like maybe I'm misremembering how it was because when I played it the first time I was like 13. But in the Return to Arkham thing, did they like tone down some of the way that the supervillain women look? Because I feel like when like the original version of that game, like Poison Ivy was like that was something that was going on there.
If
I
if
haven't-
they turned it down, like he
That's
must
what
have
I'm wondering.
cranked up
That-
beyond belief.
It,
That, yeah,
just
see,
because
I
my
think that's
memory.
Still-
probably it.
It's ridiculous.
I think they got way hornier with that stuff later on. But it's pretty bad. I'm playing the original 2009. Well, I'm playing the Game of the Year edition, but I'm pretty sure in terms of assets, it's the same.
assets.
But excuse, I didn't say that. Well, I didn't. But yeah, assets. I think that feels gross to say. Fuck. I'm sorry.
You didn't mean
I
it. You
think-
didn't mean it.
I didn't mean it. I don't know if they toned it down in the remaster. I didn't see it, but it's definitely pretty nuts here. But I don't know. I do remember how it looked at night though, and it got worse for sure. But,
Yeah, that's surprising. Like you would have thought like, oh, we can mature as developers. No, we're gonna
No.
continue that.
Yeah, well, I
Rocksteady
mean, you
was like,
also-
we got the M rating now. We can do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah, I mean, you also
I
look
forgot
at
it was M rated. Wow.
the last 4 years of like stuff that's come out about Rocksteady. It's like, okay, that makes sense when you look at how we were talking about this before, and like the
Yeah.
way that like how many like upskirt shots of Harley Quinn there are. There's like every time she's on screen, you get at least 5. You know, like it's
That stuff's crazy. They are very horny for her in that game.
Yeah.
Were people always horny for Harley Quinn? Was that I feel like in my
I feel
in
like
my
it
world,
started here.
you think it started here?
I think like it. Yeah, I think it did.
Okay,
Because
I
she
thought
was introduced like in the late '90s.
yeah, and she was like
in like
full-blown
cartoon.
jester, everything like
right
unitard. Like this is
clothed.
yes, this is like
Okay.
the whole like the sexy nurse thing in the asylum. Like I feel like somebody on the team was like, "Oh, I played Silent Hill," and they like didn't understand anything about it. And it's like we should do
Yeah.
that. You know?
Because in my head I thought it was like I thought maybe it was a Margot Robbie in Suicide Squad.
No, it was
Harley
definitely
Quinn
this.
that did everything. It was this one. Okay,
Yeah.
so that makes sense then.
Yeah.
It makes. I feel like all the stories too. Like it kind of makes sense. You have like a bunch of guys like making a bunch of nerds making a Batman game. Like, okay, I'm sure that probably didn't have the best culture going on.
Yeah.
But-
No. It also feels like in terms of like the way they represent women, it feels way older than 2009. Like I would have expected this to
does.
be like early 2000s, but this is like we're 2 years away from. I was thinking The Last of Us. We're actually a few years away from that, but like like I feel like games came a long way very quickly, or this game was just like very dated at that point.
Maybe it just got slack because it was like a comic book or something like that, or I don't know, how it went. Because like obviously, Uncharted at the time was a lot more respectful. Of course, there's some Chloe's shots, but
Yeah.
at the time it was still like
Like Uncharted 2 came out that year. I played that game like 2 weeks ago. Like, yes, there are some Chloe things,
yeah,
but like Elena in that game, like completely from a dude's perspective, it's like completely like respectable. Like, there's nothing like vulnerable about her there. But like, yeah, this is definitely. I don't. Maybe it's not like uncomfortable for me because I've played this game like 30 times, but it's definitely noticeable. And like the first time through, I was like, wow. Wow. Okay, that's you're doing that in here. Okay, so and it's just the two of them,
Was
right?
it-
There's like at least so far, it's
That's
just
it.
Harley and Ivy.
When did Zack Snyder's Watchmen come out? Was that 2009?
It was
Or was
around
that
that time.
2008? Okay. Oh shit! I'm just kind of curious. Like,
When was Zack Snyder's Sucker Punch? Was that 2009?
okay, to be fair, I'm just saying like there was a DC superhero movie thing. I guess the original comic book there was kind of horny too.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. It just like at some point, it just feels like, or was superhero stuff always horny like this? I don't
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, comic books have always kind of been like
Alright.
that.
yeah. It's only been like kind of recently that things have shifted. So like it is even further past this game. But in terms of games, right, Jack, like you're saying, like, and listen, none of us played every single thing that existed because again we were like 10 or 10 to 13 when these games are coming out, right? Like, yeah, this was definitely an element of like, oh, okay.
I do think it's funny. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I tried to do a quick image search. I couldn't find any comparisons from like
Oh,
OG Asylum to Return to Arkham, and I feel like if there were changes, there'd be a million comparison shots because you have some weird dudes that are just like they nerfed her butt, and like so like I think it's the same probably, and
there would be guys like that.
yeah, just look at literally anything that gets a remake or a remaster, it's there.
I do think it's funny. I do appreciate some of the horny stuff because I think it's funny that the Joker seems to be titillated sometimes. Like for some reason, I don't think that guy gets horny. I'm sure he doesn't. He just probably says it. But like, there's a shot of like, Harley lets Poison Ivy out, and then it sounds like the Joker is like horny. He's like, oh, two girls. It's like, I don't think he cares about that stuff. Maybe, does he? I don't know. I'm not.
I think if you
expert.
watch the recent Suicide Squad film from David Ayer, you might have a different impression. But
I'm sure I would, but I feel like this Joker is very different.
sure.
But I didn't see the Suicide Squad, or no, I saw the Suicide Squad. I didn't see Suicide Squad. Yeah, I don't know. Like, not to you guys are Batman nerds. Do like, has there ever been a shot of like Batman, not Batman, of like Joker and Harley like, fornicating?
I don't
Have they ever done that? Do they do that other than David Ayer, or no?
I don't think so.
Are they
Not,
just friends?
not that I'm aware of.
No, the
Okay.
only weird stuff DC's done lately is like Batman and Batgirl. That was a thing.
Oh,
I saw
was,
that.
Yeah.
That was horrible. Seeing that,
Yeah.
I saw that in theaters where they did the Killing Joke, like
This-
edition, like the intro of that movie is all that stuff. Like, ugh, why would they do that?
Yeah.
Because they added that only in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's Bruce Timm though, and he was not involved with this game to my knowledge. Paul Dini was like the good one. It's like when you go back to like the origins of Batman, and you're like, actually, Bill Finger is the one who did everything that's cool about Batman, but Bob Kane gets the credit. It's like today, Paul Dini, I don't even know what's going on with that man, but like Bruce
Paul
Timm
Dini?
is like, I'm taking all these projects. I'll do this. I'll do this. I'll do this. Like I'm doing Batman stuff.
I
So,
can tell you exactly what's going on with Paul Dini, or exactly what's not going on with him right now. He had written the new Scooby Doo movie
Oh yeah.
that has been since
Oh.
canceled.
That's sad.
Yeah,
But,
that was such a great name, Paul Dini. Paul Dini, Bill Finger. Bruce Timm's not that great as a name.
it's two
respect.
first names. That's two Batman characters.
I was gonna say, he sounds like a Robin.
Yeah. Tim Drake, Bruce
Tim Drake,
Wayne.
Bruce Timm.
Yeah.
I'm looking back at my notes to see if there's anything because we like story wise, the game kind of doesn't really have much of a so far, like a story. Like there's the plot going on underneath with like Batman trying to figure out what's going on with the Titan stuff, but
Which, may I say, like in terms of like this being a Batman detective story, and obviously I know the ins and outs, but I still feel like they have such a much more compelling like detective story here than like say like I have to do it than like the new Batman movie. Like I just feel like there's just obviously it kind of becomes a kind of a scary horror show sometimes with like the body modding stuff, but I still find myself more invested in what's going on here than like I don't know some of the more recent stuff.
do you, do you think it's because like handholdy or not, you're still like having some say and like some control over the investigation elements? Do you think?
Uh, I just think it's kind of fun. I think the story is like the elements here are kind of goofy and like the the way Batman's detecting stuff is neat in a way that, and I don't mean to particularly dog on. I just think I can probably not mention the new Batman movie, but detective stories can get kind of boring if they're just kind of more realistic or grounded. I feel like sometimes, but this one is just like I don't know, find the alcohol breath and oh Penny, she's there's Bane Venom, and here he is, he's having fun. It's like a roller coaster ride. You're always on the trail, and then you get rewarded, and you keep going. I feel like it's good.
Yeah, and that sort of goes back to the pacing question I had when we started talking about like the intro of the game and sort of what we've seen so far, right? Because I I think in my memory, because I know this is the linear game, I always assume that the pacing in this game is like perfect, and I think it's good, but I feel like for me at least, like it feels like it's lacking a little bit of like urgency, and like we've seen half the game so far, so like I think things might change next week when we talk, or next episode when we talk about like the second half of this game, but like I think the thing I love about the pace of the narrative so far is the clip that they introduce villains at, because I do think that is the thing that's really cool about this, because it is taking place in an asylum full of Batman's enemies that he's locked up in there. It's like, okay, you get Joker at the start, and then after that, you get to experience your first Scarecrow thing. And when Scarecrow gets thrown in the mix, it's like, oh, game is like shifting drastically right now. You're drugged. You think Gordon's dead. There's like a big plot thing going on. But sort of seeing more and more of that as it goes on. Like you get that little tease, Jack, you know, like the sewer, when you first like get into the sewer, it's like, okay, go left, but if you go right, and you don't have to go right because it's dead end, you just peek into that door and Killer Croc pops up again. He's like, I'm still coming for you, buddy. Like,
I love that. Yeah, I did that this time, and I forgot about that. That was really cool. Yeah, there's that. It's nice having that tease of like other villains coming up, especially with that. It was really cool.
Yeah, and I do like the Clayface thing also. That's a fun little joke we brought up earlier, where he just transforms into like everybody you've talked to so far. Yeah. And I do also love that detective vision on there. I threw that on, and I was like, what's it gonna be? No skeleton in that body.
No, I did it. There's so many times where you try to do it, but it doesn't show up, or like you try and like go upstairs and like run back down. But I imagine, like, I want to know what that looks like in the game. I imagine it's just like a switch,
like an asset swap. That's it.
Yeah, that's probably all it is. But yeah. I always wanted to like. I always thought it would be like Clay forming and then like him coming back down, but obviously
because they have the sound. They play the sound effect of him like morphing, which is really cool.
Right.
I know we have problems with Scarecrow to some degree, in terms of classic video game. Here's a thing you haven't done before. Now it's what you got to do. Learn it. Sorry. Okay, now it's done. I will say, very, very big fan of the design of Scarecrow in this game. Like, the glove with just the syringes on it. It's like, that. It just looks like Freddy Krueger. It's super cool. I love that. But that only carries it so far. You know?
I think Scarecrow looks cool for sure. And were you asking about how they swapped the character models to them beforehand? Or was that for
with
Scarecrow?
Clayface.
Clayface. Okay, I don't know how they were doing it for Scarecrow. Or probably very simple. But you know, sometimes in those sequences where they like switch out Batman and Scarecrow? That's very cool. I don't think you saw that.
You must be able to play it, like, if someone modded this game. You must be able to like just fully play as Scarecrow, because like you are sometimes like punching as him and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very much what was that game that came out? Was it The Medium?
That was recently, yeah.
Yeah, and the whole thing was like, oh yeah, we got parallel worlds going on. I feel like you don't really see that character swap thing, or at least back then, that often. They probably had, they gotta put Scarecrow in the RAM. Like, how does that work? I don't know.
So,
It looks cool.
what are you guys talking about? Because I don't think I've seen that. Like, has that been in
Jack.
the? Because I think I know what you're talking about. Like, I've experienced that before, but like that did not happen to me.
You definitely saw it, but you just don't notice it. Probably. Okay. It's during any of the two sequences we've seen. It's happened both times, but maybe for like half a second. Sometimes Batman's character model will get swapped out for Scarecrow's. That's all. You don't really notice a playability difference. But Jack, it seems like you can still punch while you're Scarecrow.
Yeah, like it's like in select moments, and I don't know if it's random or not. It seems kind of random because like I'll be in the middle of like a combat sequence, and I'll be like initiate a punch as Batman, and the screen flashes. Your character model will show up as Scarecrow, and he'll like punch a guy, and then he'll flash back out as Batman. It's for like a select few frames, and then you're in and out. But like sometimes even when you're like walking around, you'll become Scarecrow for a second, and then it'll flash back to Batman.
What do you think it means?
Yeah.
I've never thought of that actually.
I always think like I just don't know why they do it. Like my dumbest explanation is it saying, yeah, Scarecrow's the one in control.
Yeah.
Like
I mean that could be.
I'll be very vague. Thinking of like other Batman stories with Scarecrow, right? Like when Scarecrow's, from my experience, ever like front and center, they always make it a really big point to be like, we're the same, you know? It's like we both deal with fear to get what we need. Like maybe that's it. Like maybe they're saying like you might as well be playing as the villain because you're using fear. You're making all those henchmen freak out, piss themselves when they're running around these rooms. You know, it's like it's the same thing. Like he's just doing to you what you do to them. So like maybe that's it. I don't know, because that's just like what Batman stories do a lot.
Right. That's what because you just mentioned that, but like in my mind, like all right, villains that say they're just like Batman. There's Cobblepot in that Telltale game. There's the Riddler in that new Batman movie. There's the Joker in the Dark Knight in that interrogation scene. He's like, you're not like them, or like I don't know, like you know.
You're
what were we just talking about? Scarecrow?
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it happens to all of them, right? Is that a whole thing about being a Batman villain is like, you guys are the same? Or like, I don't know. It just seems like it comes up all the time. Or maybe it's just the cliche movie thing in general. Like, the villain's always like, yeah, we're the same, yo. But
yeah, but well, at the same time, like I feel like that's a thing Marvel does a lot, and it's always annoying when they do it. But like when a Batman
it's a
thing does
like,
it,
like art does, I suppose, or like stories do.
But like I think if we look at the villains so far in this game, right? Like we have Joker, we have Bane, Harley, and Scarecrow. Like, I guess with the exception of Harley, because she's like positioned in like a non like dominant villain role in this, she's just like supporting Joker stuff. If you put her aside and you have just Joker, Bane, and Scarecrow so far, I guess each of them do have a proficiency. Like the thing that they are like the best at is something that Batman is also very skilled in. It's just he knows when to stop it, I guess. Because like Bane, the whole thing with him is like, and I don't think this game really treats it that well. Bane is supposed to be like, oh, also Riddler. Bane is supposed to be like intellectual Batman, same level, except he can also has the strength. In this, he's just like a brute. So there's that combat encounter.
Another point for the Dark Knight Rises, baby.
Sure. Which do you guys like the Bane fight in the arena?
Yeah, he's all right. I don't know.
Once you know it, it's like it's pretty easy.
Yeah,
I forgot it.
Me too.
This playthrough, I thought you had to get him to crash into the walls.
I remember thinking this game had really amazingly good boss fights.
It's not this one,
but maybe not this one.
It's not this
No.
one. It's just the Titan, man. It's just they always do like the Titan stuff in this. Like there's the mini boss Titans, and then there's the Bane fight, which is the exact same thing as a Titan, except you have to go to him at a specific point, whereas the Titans, any opening you have, you can really charge him. But
I I get somewhat surprised that this game didn't get an M rating back then. I think it's because it's Batman.
sure.
But like it looks gnarly sometimes and a lot of crude language, pretty dark themes, a lot of like the at some point the inmates, the ones that aren't even like super villains, just guys that their head isn't right at the asylum or whatever, just like kind of trying to get you. Like there's some messed up stuff in this game.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, because I never.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Right?
Yeah, I never realized
Okay.
this until this playthrough, honestly.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, when you're doing the introduction, and like you're on one side with Joker, and then the other side there's like processing of like the Blackgate crew, like they make it a point they don't they don't highlight this, but they do say it's like, oh yeah, there was a fire at Blackgate prison, and then all of Joker's henchmen and thugs got sent over to Arkham Asylum because it's the only holding place they have. So like the majority of the game, you're just beating up criminals that were already incarcerated. But then when you go to the penitentiary, like where Harley takes over, like there, it prompted me because like one of them jumped on me. It said press triangle to throw lunatic. Like the lunatics get loose.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I
And
didn't see that.
yeah, that's when it gets weird because it's like, Twitter loves reducing everything to the simplest thing in the world, right? And it's like, well, Batman actually sucks because he doesn't fund public services. It's like, if you read a goddamn comic, he does. But there was a moment when I was playing this game, I was like, he's just beating up mentally ill people. That's not cool. Like, I
Well,
get
no,
it's the
I thought
criminally
that exact
insane,
thing.
but like, it's weird.
That's like kind of what a lot of people bring up about the character in general, and like any of the villains he faces are like that, or a lot of them are, and I feel like this is like the most deliberate instance, and it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, because like
and the naming as well, like it's just not great.
it is Arkham Asylum. It's like something for the criminally insane is the name of the full place, right? So it's like, again, 2009. I don't really think that the best people making this game had the best intentions in the world after that conversation we had about the women. But like, criminally insane, it's like, oh, they're in there, they're bad, so Batman can beat them up. But like, even as a kid when I played that, I was like weirded out and like scared by it. Like as soon as they did that first jump scare of the one in like the straitjacket, I was like, okay, rest of the game I'm playing like only detective mode so I can like see if somebody's gonna pop out. And then as an adult playing it, I'm like, eh. Listen, no.
I don't want to like get too featurey, but like I feel like there's a Rocksteady might think that some of these games like just actually deal with mental health, like all the trip sequences and stuff like that, where it goes. Like I don't know, that was the whole vision all along, but I doubt it. I do feel like the mental health conversation now is a lot different than it was in 2009. Not
Yeah.
cutting them slack, but it definitely made me uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I was
and
like, holy crap.
I don't think there's been a single good, from what I've seen, media representation in like a mainstream way of an asylum, like
A good burger.
ever. Which one?
Good burger.
You know what? Yeah, that's that. Honestly, yes, that is a good one. Maybe, but
Like
like,
the Keaton
like-
and Kel Good Burger.
Yeah, you remember when Cal goes, he meets that girl Heather.
yeah, I haven't seen that film in like 5 years at least, but I do remember like that. Oh, that's just like a wholesome moment. Like even the guards, like they're pretty. They're all having a good
Cal's
time.
putting the shark poison in the soup or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, like wasn't this the same year as like Shutter Island?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or around then.
Like, yeah, different time, doesn't hold up, I don't think. And from my memory, for what we have ahead of us, I don't remember how much more the like actual inmates of Arkham Asylum are involved. That might just be this building, but yeah, that definitely rubbed me the wrong way. It's like I get beating up the Blackgate people, but like that's just weird.
Yeah, and Batman's like doesn't even like have a moral conflict.
No.
He's just like, like just knocking them down left and right.
Yeah. So
And,
I think that is
you know
maybe
what's
one
funny?
failing of this interpretation.
You know how Batman doesn't kill people.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just making sure we're on the same page. There's one moment
Yeah,
where
so Omar, my Batman symbol that I threw on for my lower third in this is the Ben Affleck Batman symbol. You can call it
whoa,
out.
okay, yeah, just
I
making
get
sure.
it, yeah.
Yeah, the I think it's in the penitentiary area too. Is it penitentiary? Is that how you say that?
I think so.
Which means prison, right? Is that okay? The Harley fight with it's like a very much a Mario Party level with like the mushroom kind of stage. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
One time I totally knocked down a guard off the thing, but then I heard him get dunked into water.
Oh.
Did you hear that? Yeah, it sounds like I knocked him off, but to make sure it was okay, like the game played an audio sound effect that he was like swimming.
While he was being
so
electrocuted?
Maybe that was it. Maybe it was just that noise is what I heard, but it sounded like he landed in water. I don't know. He fell off the edge.
There are some instances, and this is kind of like Spider-Man,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Insomniac one, where you'll throw guys like off like a tall ledge,
Skyscraper,
and
yeah.
like the bat, like the grapple will come out and like grab them. It's so funny.
Yeah. Like, there's been times, like, I've played Spider-Man, and, like, somebody gets launched off a construction roof, and I just hear, like, and I'm like, oh, that guy died. Like, that's not... Like, even though that thing
Yeah.
grabbed him, that guy's dead. Like...
No, these necks are being snapped.
No, but Omar, if you turn on detective vision and you look at a corpse, you'll see that they have a resting heart
They're
rate of
blue.
like 16 beats per minute, so they're okay.
Of course, and they just don't wake up for the rest of that night. I guess is all good.
Or that week, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Or ever. I don't know. They really seem fucking dead.
yeah.
But yeah, I have another thing to mention about before we move on for the penitentiary. Another moment of horniness that I thought was uncomfortable was there's a point where Batman puts away Harley and Oracle calls him. I don't know if you guys remember this line or if it stood out to you, but this was a moment where Batman laughed. And
Yes.
Oracle, yeah, okay, cool. I think Oracle called and how's the situation, whatever, and how's Harley, and Batman goes, heh, she's subdued.
Yes.
Wasn't that weird? What was that about?
Ridiculous.
Also,
I-
go ahead.
I was just gonna say the way they treat Harley in this is really like you don't even get a
It's
boss fight with
horrible.
her. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like that would have been really cool, and I don't know.
Gotham
It's
Knights
not
will solve it for us. Finally, writing
Yeah.
it's wrong.
So one thing that I completely forgot to mention, I don't know if I wrote this down, but it was early in the game, and it also really like rubbed me the wrong way. Was I think it was like after one of the first like times like Joker closed a gate or something, and then you have to track it down. Like the first time you're tracking Harley, I think he was on call Batman with Oracle, and he was like, "Oh, I just gotta find Harley. It's okay. She's never been that bright." I'm like, the doctorate, who was a psychologist, has never been
Right.
smart. Like, I don't know that. Yeah, it's all these things are standing out to me more this playthrough. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, like I always knew it was like a weird horny game, but like all this stuff on top of it's like, ugh.
Yeah,
Not
and
the
it
best.
doesn't really improve. Also, like, just thinking like she's jumping all over the walls in this game, like that could have been really interesting
Yeah.
in like a boss like arena perspective, and we just never get it. That's sad.
Especially with like where they take the character and like honestly like I really like that Birds of Prey movie.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
some of that action in there is like really good. Like hopefully at some point we get some cool Hollywood boss fights. I suppose
Well, Rocksteady's next game, Harley's a playable character, so
that's true. Maybe they'll right the wrong.
here's hoping.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I'm sure we'll talk about that more at some point during this
We'll
playthrough.
probably play it on this podcast.
I'm trying to see if there were any other notes because we've covered most, I think, of the
I'll take a look.
playable segments of the game, right?
Can I mention actually? There's one thing about the Scarecrow thing I'd like to mention too.
Sure.
Because I think, especially in this series, or maybe it was just Night later on, but I definitely at some point got really annoyed about the dream sequences, or like was over it. But, and especially, I'm also I don't really like or don't care too much about to see the Bruce Wayne parents' death thing anymore. I'm like fine with it. But I do love that sequence in this game. The long hallway walk in the rain, and Batman like going like red a couple of times, and like the moment where like Oracle calls him after he wakes up, and he's like, "Are you all right, Bruce?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm okay." Like it's a good moment. It's a good Kevin Conroy performance. Like
Yeah, my favorite parts of the Scarecrow stuff in this game, and specifically just talking about the two that we've seen so far. Is there more? I don't know. The two that we've done so far, like the coolest part of those sequences, I do think is the transition where like Batman starts to lose it, and it maybe my memory was different because it was the first time playing through it, but like it's so clearly telegraphed here, right? Like the first time like Joker says something and then gas comes out of the elevator, he coughs, and then you start walking, and then it takes a second, and then things start getting weird. Um, and then there was the Jim Gordon like fake out death. First time, I completely thought that was where we were going. I was like, "Whoa, Gordon's dead! Wow!" But like on a replay, it's like super super clear, and the way they do handle the death scene, I do think is really great with the Wayne murder. I love seeing the halls of the asylum turn into the alley. It's so cool.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
I was curious. Another Batman expertise required question. Doesn't that scene get referred to as pearls these days, or like is that just because of Joker? When did that happen? Because like I was looking on the ground for pearls, being like, okay, let's see it.
That
But
maybe like 89. Like that's probably maybe one of the first
time.
instances.
Okay. They just didn't put pearls in this one.
No, I think she's wearing them.
Oh, okay, there's not
in
all over the
in like
ground.
the like body bag in like the first. I think it's like the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the morgue.
Got something on. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, because I think it's been like in retellings of that in comics, they've made a point of like, oh, it's the pearl necklace is like what the guy wanted or something, what Joe Chill
It's
wanted,
iconic shot in Joker,
and in
the film.
Batman v Superman, I think they hang on that. I think for a second,
I think it was Batman v Superman where the gun, like the motion of the gun was like it was like holding up the pearls, and the motion of the gun like ripped the pearls off.
What a shot! What a
That
shot
was
that
cool.
is, Jack. Right, Zack Snyder, what an auteur.
No one does visuals like him.
No.
Yeah, they should
All
give him the whole
respect.
DC universe.
They should.
Um,
I'm serious.
Another thing, I mean, just talking about like comparisons, I thought it was neat that this was like what the year after the Dark Knight, and at the very beginning, it's like, oh, Joker's plan was to get caught, break out, and the first time he faces off against Batman after he got caught, he's like, "Kill me, I dare you, you won't," and then doesn't, and then he leaves.
Well,
I was like, okay, you guys liked that movie.
Batman feels so stupid in that first scene too because he knows something's going on.
Yeah.
But then he still tells everyone, I think something's going on, guys. I don't know what's happening. Something's definitely going on. I'm not crazy, right? And then, oh, something happened. Like, he knows he's fucking up, and he just keeps doing it.
Yeah. And,
But,
I mean, I think the way it's presented is cool, but there are a lot of moments in that beginning where it's like,
yeah.
okay, why are you walling him off from here? Like, from this point on, like, why? But
Joker isn't even hiding it either. He's just telling him, yeah, she's going to go crazy tonight.
Yeah. And I do like that. I think that's the other thing that I really like about the way the game introduces all the villains is like Joker's always on that PA system. Like every time you open a hallway and you see a TV, it's like, okay, where's the message? And then he pops in. I love all that stuff. I think that's really cool. And I know like didn't like a Far Cry game do that or something where like the villain's talking to the whole time, right?
I think they all did that after 3.
Yeah. So like
and it's cool here because it's Mark Hamill.
Yeah, he's killing. He's doing a great performance. I do like that you can like throw batarangs to the TVs when he's talking and they just break. Like,
That is
fun.
cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Then he
My
pops
favorite
up on
part of
another
the
one.
Dark Knight is when the banker is on the TV and the Joker is talking to him like, the man on the TV. He's like really mean to him. But in this one, the Joker loves the TV, and I keep thinking, oh man, this Joker is lame. Not really, but actually, not to be a hater, but Mark Hamill is doing a great job. But I do think some of the writing in this game, we've talked about some of the stuff, but isn't holding up the way I remembered. And I do think like I wish it would be more quiet sometimes.
Sure.
I wish we'd have less Joker lines. I wish it would just be like a little bit more chill.
Yeah.
But he's doing a great job. But yeah,
Right.
it's him and like it becomes like a really like assault on my ears sometimes with he's going and then we get a segment with Harley going and then like the Riddler's doing whatever the hell he's doing. Like it's a lot of noise coming out of that game.
Yeah, and it's like what we were saying earlier when you're trying to play a tape. Like
Yeah.
there's always something in this game that will interrupt it because there really aren't too many moments of silence. Even like
No.
even in points where you're like climbing up like through the sewers, like you're having a conversation with the Oracle during that.
I was wondering that because did you recently play through like the new Horizon game? Or
Yes.
I heard
Mhm.
like Aloy in that game talks a lot.
Yeah,
Is this
that quick.
more than that, or
I,
like
I'm maybe a bad person to talk to that about that game because I don't really like Horizon
podcast?
at this point. It's
Okay,
such a podcast game, dude.
okay,
Like that
okay.
story is nothing. Um,
All right.
but yes, she is very much like, huh, maybe I should do like you enter an arena or like some puzzle, and she's like, I should do this immediately right now, and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna let you like figure it out. It's like, all right, whatever.
I definitely feel like this game treats the player as like an idiot a lot of the time. I'm
Yeah,
like, all right.
totally.
Yeah, it's definitely strange because I feel like I don't mind it as much in this game as I would in a different one. Where like, I wonder if it's just one because I have experience with it, but two also because like I'm taking it with the context of like Batman would have all this information. Like Batman would know exactly what to do. So like I wonder if that's just me being a stupid fanboy and like being like, oh yeah, that makes sense, in the headcanon where like if I was playing, um, what's an example? I don't know. If I was playing like uh Mass Effect 4 and like the whole time you get like tally on your comms being like the second you land it's like okay so you want to go here you want to talk to this person and make sure you don't bring this person there because that's going to be a problem, you know, like
Yeah. I,
I don't know.
I'm not even trying to be the biggest hater, but like I think I also might have been like I might have become more jaded in recent years about the Joker himself. Like something about the internet might have poisoned me, but it's a weird character. Like, not weird. It's one of the best characters of all time. But like sometimes like I I think the Dark Knight's really good with the Joker there because I think he's legitimately funny. This one, I think he like says something really nefarious, uncomfortable, and not nice, and then he starts laughing like a maniac, and I'm like, whoa, this guy's unhinged. But it's like,
And Jack, I don't know how you feel about this, right? Because like I think a lot of these characters feel like caricatures in a way. Like I feel like because for at least me personally judging Batman movies, like Arkham, like I said, is my standard for Batman, and like the tone, like I feel like this is a good balance between like feeling dark, but also like having that sort of whimsy to it, even if it isn't like in good fun, if it is like kind of just fucked up at times. Like, do you think that they ride that balance well, or like, do you feel like it oversteps with any of the characters? I guess like breaking sort of the tone they set out with.
Well, I agree with Omar in a lot of ways. I feel like Joker is in this is like try hard funny, and like you probably see him way too much or
Yeah.
like hear from him way too much because he's on like the PA system all the time. Um, but like they do like establish that the world itself, like you're entering into like a pretty serious take, but all the characters are pretty goofy. Like if you stripped away all the characters in this, like the tone of like the island, even like quiet moments of like Batman like going to the Batcave, like those are pretty self serious. But anytime you like come up on a group of like henchmen, they're gonna say like a funny thing, or like even guards are being like kind of ridiculous. So it is that balance. And I think for the most part, it's pretty good. I think if it was just like very serious, it'd be a very downer or dour experience. But for the most part, it's like silly at points, but also serious at others. And I like that balance in this.
Yeah, and to the game's credit as well, I know we're only halfway through, but I feel like I've only heard a repeat Joker line like once over the PA system. I think, because they pop them in for like really focused setup moments for sure, but there is sort of that sort of general PA system chatter check in that I don't know what time like kind of timer it's on, but he'll just like have a quip or over a fight he'll say something and like I feel like that stuff is pretty varied so far. Um, did either of you sort of going back to the sort of the Joker stuff and just the game structure overall? You get an opportunity when you first enter, I think Arkham East, where you walk past this hallway that like guards are. I think it's the visitor center. Guards are like hammering something. Like Joker's guys are hammering boards on it, And if you knock them out, you can go down that hallway, and there's a door system you go through. And if you go in there, it switches to first person. Did you guys do that?
Not this time because that makes me really uncomfortable.
Oh, we're going first
But
person?
I do know of that instance. And I know what you're talking about, but I just don't do it because you're like right next to the Joker, aren't you? Like a wall is separating.
Kind of. Omar, did you do this? Are you aware of this?
I don't know anything about this.
Okay,
This is
so
an Easter egg kind of thing I never knew about.
yeah, so I think I must have only done this after I played the game the first time, because I knew that it was like, oh, there's a door there, because like in the second half we will go through that door. So I went through there because you could, and then it goes first person, and it's like a visitor center where there's a hallway and there's a bunch of like glass dividers with like the prison speaker and like a chair on the other side, and then at the end of the hallway, like directly ahead of you, there's like a body or like a mannequin. It's probably a body. It's probably a dead person in Joker's full getup, like his entire suit, but his head is a TV and he's holding his head. Um, and if you walk all the way up to it, you can interact with it, and then Joker will like have a just like maybe like a 1 or 2 minute monologue talking to you and intimidating you, and it's first person. So like Jack said, you were like right up against that glass on like the prison visitor center, and he's just like taunting you the whole time.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think the game guide for this game had that Joker with the TV guy head on it, but I don't know if I ever saw it in game. That sounds scary.
This was during, speaking of like Easter eggs, this was during the part we played. I tried doing this, I couldn't get it to work. Did you guys know like the Arkham City Easter egg in this?
I'm aware of it, but I forgot where it was.
It's at the warden's office, I think. It's like when you pick up Harley's. Sorry, my microphone like cuts in and out sometimes. It's like where you pick up Harley's trail.
Okay.
I couldn't get it to work this time though. I don't know if they took it out of the remastered version or you have to come back later in the game.
Was it like a blueprint thing for the city plans or whatever?
Yeah, you have to destroy a wall that doesn't have like the detective vision stuff on it.
Nice.
And you see like plans for Arkham City.
Cool. Yeah, they announced that game like a few months after this came out, right? Wasn't that like the same year or something?
I don't remember.
I think it was. I think it was like this game came out in August, and then the Spike VGA Awards or whatever in like December. Like they had a trailer, and I was like, "What the fuck? That's soon."
Oh wow. Yeah, because I remember the room you're talking about, Jack. That wasn't discovered for a while, right? Like I don't think people found that until after City came out.
Yeah, I was reading that the devs had to be like, "Hey, there's an Easter egg here." Like they had to tell people.
Which is super cool because Omar, you texted us, and I didn't know this until you mentioned this to us. But like, this game was made and conceived and built and shipped very quickly.
In 21 months was the year or something. The time frame.
That's wild.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder, because that to me almost feels like, well, games were made a lot faster back then, but almost feels like this totally was trying to be made as a licensed, like maybe a movie tie-in kind of game, like released like the fast schedules they had, but they maybe got more time or something like that and turned it around.
I remember hearing about this, and I wanted to like bring this up at some point, and I'm sure like we'll probably have time in like a future episode out of all these Arkham videos to like talk about maybe other Batman games, but like there was a game for Batman Begins, which I played, and it came out I think the same year as that movie. And there's a lot of Arkham in it, from my memory at least. When I played it, I think I played it maybe after I saw or played some of Asylum, and I was like, oh, this like the stealth system is like kind of similar. But I feel like I've read somewhere that like there was a Dark Knight game similar to the Batman Begins game that was being developed and then got shelved in favor of Arkham Asylum.
I don't know if it was like say I believe EA had a deal for that, right? Because they put out the Batman Begins game.
I think so.
And then I don't know which developer for EA was making it, but yeah, totally. I think they were. There's footage of it out there. I think they were running animation maybe, but yeah, they definitely got shot. Was it?
Was it Sierra?
Batman Sierra. I was gonna say yeah. Was it a Pandemic, like the guys who made Saboteur and like Battlefront, or no?
Maybe. I don't remember.
I'll look that up. I actually really kind of liked that game.
Yeah, I was cool.
Begins one?
Yeah.
I
pretty
recently
good.
played some of the Game Boy Advance version of it, and it was pretty fun. But,
I genuinely I think that Batman Begins game is pretty cool, but clearly I think Asylum is much better. So I'm not
for
upset we
sure.
never got a Dark Knight game, but
Vicarious Visions or Eurocom?
Okay. For the Dark Knight game?
No, for Batman Begins.
Oh, I see. Oh, it must have been one of them is the GBA version. Probably
Yeah,
Vicarious is
Vicarious
GBA.
Visions was GBA,
Yeah.
and Eurocom, who I don't even know.
I don't know if
Uh,
I'm familiar with them. It sounds
did-
familiar.
so I think we're probably winding down the Asylum talk for the first half of the game, but
I'm gonna miss that movie. We can go. Yeah. Also, Pandemic Studios was making that Dark Knight game.
oh wow, oh so
That's pretty cool.
damn.
Rest in peace, Pandemic.
Maybe if this game didn't exist, Pandemic would still be around because that Dark Knight game would have been huge, probably.
I know. Imagine a Pandemic open world for that. Mercenaries, Batman.
Man, that's so sad. Like now that I
That
think
is
about that,
sad.
like yeah, I'm glad that we got the Arkham games, and I'm glad for everything that happened with Arkham. But like, man, Pandemic making Battlefront 3 and shipping it. Come on.
You know what? I bet those guys probably had the Nolan Inception plans too before they shut down. Must have.
Probably. But, yeah, I feel like we've covered most of what I had in mind for the Arkham Asylum talk. So, for the first half at least, is there any other moments that we haven't touched on, or just general thoughts about everything in the game so far that you guys want to talk
My
about?
one thing I mentioned is in the group chat to you guys last night, but I didn't mention about the Bane boss fight. Favorite Kevin Conroy line ever is Bane goes, "I will break you, Batman," and Batman goes, "This time, Bane, I break you." It's so good, really great.
Yeah.
Kevin Conroy is a legend.
Yeah.
I think he might. To me, I think you have multiple great Joker interpretations, but Kevin Conroy might just be Batman.
Oh, he absolutely is for sure.
Yeah.
I like a lot of things about a bunch of the different Batman interpretations, but I do think like when I say that like the Arkham Batman is like my standard of like what Batman should be in my head, it's like that includes the voice. I think Conroy is Batman, like flat out.
Totally.
Yeah,
And like,
if you read comics, like you read him as Kevin Conroy's
Oh,
voice.
100%, yeah.
I read it in Bales. What are you guys talking about?
Another thing I wrote down, why this is going back to the character bios, why is every single person 6 feet tall?
Yeah,
Unreal
I did
Engine
notice
3.
that.
That has to be a scalability thing. I guarantee it.
I mean,
Like,
they don't
maybe
have to
they made
say
the doors
they're all
too big.
6 feet tall, right?
Was that?
They don't have to say that everybody's 6 feet tall. Like Oracle isn't even a character model in this game. It's actually 6 feet tall.
Are they? Oh, they're all just like 6'0".
There's a couple that are like 5'7", 5'11", but like almost everybody you click on of like, oh, this character I just saw, 6 feet.
I don't know.
Joker
That's
6
weird.
feet tall. Batman I think is like 6'2". Scarecrow 6
Joker
feet.
looks like he's 7 feet. To be fair,
he does.
Bane is 11. I made sure to
11
look at
feet?
that. Yeah.
That's
It says
crazy.
his height. Doesn't it say his height unvenomed?
Oh,
Or
does
is that that might be in City.
Okay. That's cool though. I like that. Well, yeah, I
I
guess.
got all my notes.
Jack, was there anything else that you had written down that we haven't talked about?
Not that I have written down. I'll point out again that I really like the Riddler stuff in here.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
It's not very like. There's not too many puzzles you're solving, but I do like when you walk into a room, you get that riddle, and it's like, oh, what are we talking about here? And it's like something about the Penguin. You go find like an umbrella in like a case, and you scan that. I think that's fun. All of that is like completely burned into my memory, so I don't even look at the riddle. I'm like, oh, I know I can scan something over here.
Yup.
I don't even look at things. I just know that's where it is.
I'm glad you brought up the Riddler because I did want to talk about Riddler in this game. And we just kept like moving on to something else, but like again talking to like how this game introduces all their villains, like just the pace they do, like all the stuff with Joker happens. You do that first room, and then it's like, okay, your PA gets hacked, and then Riddler starts talking to you, and he sets up the riddles, and then a couple rooms after that's when Scarecrow goes down, and then you got all that other stuff. But yeah, same. The second I walked into that room before I even walked up to the body of that cop. I was like, let me scan the Quincy Sharp thing, and it's like, wait, no, I can't yet because I have to like activate it first. But um, as we go on, I know the Riddler stuff gets memed to death with this series. Like, I think this one's fine to say because it's like fully a side thing. But like, from your memory, do you guys think that this is your favorite implementation of the Riddler stuff in the trilogy?
No, I actually prefer City.
I do
A
too.
lot. Because like there's actual moments, especially like with the side quests that
Yeah.
you eventually can do. There's actual moments where you can solve puzzles.
Yes.
Where this is just like opening a grate to find something or destroying a wall, or like using gadgets to get somewhere to pick up a trophy. Whereas like, or even like scattered throughout City, there like you use gadgets in an interesting way to like solve little puzzles, and I feel like that's missing from this.
I truthfully, honestly, I played City at least 4 times. I played this at least 6 times. I never have dabbled with the Riddler stuff. I'll do a couple of them. I'll find a trophy, but I've never engaged with it.
Okay.
Seems cool, but I don't know.
I think my problem with the Riddler in this game is like, again, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So like, I'm doing all of these passively. You know, it's like, oh, yeah, there's one up there. I'll grab that before I go into the next room because it's just literally like ripping a grate down and then grabbing it. Or, oh yeah, I know I have to scan that thing, and I get experience for it, so I can like level up my Wayne Tech. But um, it just feels like it's a distraction. Like it feels ancillary. There's no reason to be doing it. Like Riddler's just like, do it, Batman. And it's like, why? I don't have to. Clearly, there's nothing risking this. There's no problem. And like Omar said, he's not touching it at all. So like, it's cool that Riddler pops in there and like you get another voice in that constant sea of, you know, communication with all these characters in this game when you pick up trophies, like just to like diversify it. But I think with superhero games there is that problem of like, how are you going to rationalize picking up a million trophies when you're trying to stop people from being killed, right? And I think there's a way to frame it that makes it make sense, and this game does not even make an effort to do that, I don't think. So
Sure. Yeah.
It's-
There's no real story. Like even like towards the end of it, like maybe next episode we'll talk about like how it ends. There's no bearing on the story at all.
yeah, I don't
It's
even
kinda
remember
silly.
any like resolution with that because I've done
Well,
them, but
we
yeah.
could. I'll say it because it doesn't even really matter. Like when you get all the riddles, Batman just calls the cops. You hear like over the phone like the police coming to the Riddler's door, and that's it. It's kind of silly.
That's yeah, wow. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, and he's like not even on the island. He's like in his apartment, like in Gotham somewhere.
Yeah, so like, did he have his henchmen set all these up? Like, did he do it last time he was there? Has he been to Arkham
must.
before? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. He must have.
But I think that's probably the first half of Batman Arkham Asylum. So I guess as we sign off, we can each hit general thoughts on the replay so far. Worries or hopes going into next week. Again, not really touching on story or spoiler stuff, but just based off of the experience you've had with this part of the playthrough, things you're keeping an eye out, looking forward, things you're hoping to see maybe improve in the second half of the game. Omar, we'll start with you. You can also shout out anything you want to shout out, plugs, all that
Sure.
stuff.
I have nothing to shout out, but Joy Clicks, baby, greatest YouTube channel in the world. That's that, and then I'm looking forward to playing next week. I still think this game is pretty fantastic. The scenario is really the scenario. The idea is still just so good. I think the whole like it's one night at Arkham. I'm really enjoying that. The pacing is excellent, and I guess I'm kind of surprised that the thing that's faulting it for me isn't the voice acting it so far. It's so far just the writing seemed uninteresting. I don't know if we should get into this next week, but I play this and I keep thinking about Christian. Now you talked about this a little bit, like a Resident Evil 2 style reimagining of it, where they do a new script, do a new pass, and all of it, which I think could be cool because the scenario is just too good. You might as well just remake this game or reboot it like every 10, 15 years, or even make a movie adaptation of it. I'm waiting for Ben Affleck to come back.
They were gonna do that. That was the script.
Yeah, I know. It was an amazing idea.
Yeah.
I'm sad and disappointed at what we got. We're in the worst timeline. It was a good movie. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's all I got.
Nice. Jack, let's hear it. Plugs, shout outs, hopes, expectations for week 2, retrospective thoughts on week 1.
Sure. Yeah, I guess overall you can follow me on Twitter at FascinatingJack. Christian and I have a Marvel's Avengers podcast called Excelsior. We're also reviewing She-Hulk. And we're coming back this week with a big old episode, so look forward to that. I feel like with this game, I've played it this is one of the games I've played so many times where it's hard to really get anything new going back into it, and I feel like the law of diminishing returns is like definitely a good example for this game, where I'm like, I've gotten everything I've needed to out of this game. I love it so much. It's hard to go back and really like still feel those feelings I originally felt when I picked it up for the first few times. But it's still great. Still great. There are some like parts of it that haven't aged well in terms of like writing, but also the way the game feels. Like it's a little stiff in my opinion. Going back to it, there's some spots where I wish they went a little bit further with like encounters and things like that. But no, it's still great. I feel like the vibes and the atmosphere of this game is what still sticks out to me, and I just really enjoy. It's not like a survival horror, but you do get like those horror sort of like scary elements at points, and I love it. It's awesome.
Very nice. Yeah, I will agree with everything we've said so far. I think the vibes of this game, the concept are immaculate, untouchable, but there's just so many things that, again, from the perspective of a replay, I'm like, yep, it's the first one, you know? And going into the second half, I guess I'm hoping that like the urgency escalates a little more, and like it feels like there's actually like a something that is like a risk that we're actually fighting against. But yeah, I love the Metroidvania element. I love how like straightforward and locked in a lot of this is, and like the backtracking. I think backtracking in games can suck. I think in this game it's done very well because of sort of the mobility of his Batman, and when you come back to places with the gadgets, it's like things are just easier now because I can blow things up, you know. So yeah, still really love this game, but definitely, like you said, Omar, like I do think it could do with maybe not like a full-blown remake or a reimagining, but like another game where Batman is in Arkham Asylum for one night. Like that's just a great concept, and there's so many villains, you could do so many stories with it. So there's definitely something special about the game still. And
Can I shout out something while we're on that topic?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever read the Grant Morrison Arkham Asylum graphic novel?
I have.
Did Paul Dini do the art, or was it around the same time, or 2006 or something like that? Or
I don't think so.
The cover is like
the cover's
you
spooky,
would
right?
know the cover. It's like Joker's eyes over the asylum, and it's like
it's like crayons or something, or is like
It's like a very the art style is very exaggerated. And like if you Google Grant Morrison Batman Arkham, and you'll see like the way the Joker's depicted in that, it is wild. I highly recommend reading it. Like that, I feel like that came out before this game. But like the visuals themselves are the main draw.
Is it that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah. I've never seen that cover before.
It's wild. And it's obviously like very similar to this. It's like a Batman has like one night in Arkham Asylum. So I would highly recommend reading that. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I read it a long time ago, but I do think it would probably be worth a revisit, so I might try and get to that at some point. But
this came out in 1989. So
oh wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I for sure thought that was the 2000s. Damn, that's nuts. Okay. Well.
Yeah. The art reminds me of like the I Spy books in a way. But like if whoever did that was on even more acid than they were. So, it's definitely worth a read.
Sure. Well, that is part 1.
Wait.
Yep.
We forgot to shout out one last thing, Christian. September 1st, a direct.
This is coming
Watch
out way
stream.
after that direct, man.
Oh, never mind. Then forget that.
Yeah. Anyway,
My bad.
there's probably a Nintendo Direct September 1st. Thank Omar for
Let's
that.
hope.
He predicted it. But yeah, that is part 1 of the Long Play Club's definitive Arkham Asylum playthrough discussion series. We will have another episode. We're probably recording both of these before the first one even comes out, so next episode should be within a week, or a week exactly. And like I said, stay tuned. At JoyClicks on Twitter. I'll probably do like a community post on the YouTube channel as well when we figure out plans for City. But yeah, we love the Batman games, so we are committed to doing the ones that say Arkham on it. So look forward to that this fall. You can find me Twitter, TikTok at ChunTD2. And if you enjoy this show, if you want to support the channel, you can go to patreon.com/joyclicks at the $1 and $5 tiers. $5 will give you producer credit on every show we produce, like Aaron Easton and Jose Garcia. So thank you very much. And the Long Play Club you can find in many places. You can find it on youtube.com/joyclicks in playlist format. There's a whole dedicated column, row, whatever it is, for Long Play Club series we've done. Metal Gear Solid 1 through 5 and Peace Walker, all up there. We did, Omar and I did one for Dark Souls. We did one for Elden Ring. I think that's all of them. I think that's all the long plays.
Rising soon, inshallah.
Yes, Metal Gear Solid Rising will happen. We are still committed to that. So you
Up to
can.
solid, Christian. It's just Metal Gear Rising.
Apologies, I haven't played it before.
Apology accepted.
Thank you.
It's a new series.
It was.
New armor. I don't know.
It was. But yeah, you can also find the Long Play Club on any podcast service you enjoy listening to, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all that stuff. Just look up JoyClicks or the Long Play Club. You will find it. You can probably just search like Batman Arkham Podcast as well. I doubt there's any of these out there at the moment because this is a dead IP. So you'll find it pretty easily that way as well. But that's it. Enjoy your time playing the next half of Arkham Asylum. We will see you in the next one. And do we have you want to do a Joker quote? You want to do a I'm Batman?
Do the Batman. Omar should do the Batman Bane quote.
Oh, I did it. I did it too soon. Do you guys want to take a crack at it? I've already done it.
Jack,
I could be Bane and you can be Batman. Or yeah.
I was gonna suggest the same thing.
Okay. So
What am I doing?
I'm gonna be Bane and you're gonna be Batman. All right.
Okay.
I'll be the Batmobile.
Okay. I can't remember what Bane says, to be honest, but it's probably something along the line. What do you say?
He says, "I will break you, Batman."
I will break you, Batman.
No, Bane. This time, it is I who breaks you.
Ew.